Cleveland Browns, a lot of stuff still swirling about this team, and this is one of the teams why it's tough to kind of preview them fully, but we'll do the best we can here. Kevin Stefanski's back, so we at least know that. Alex Van Pelt at offensive coordinator, Joe Woods at defensive coordinator, so at least the coaching staff is intact. Trade for Deshaun Watson, as you know. Trade for Amari Cooper, as you know. They signed Jacoby Brissett as backup. They retained David Njoku. They signed Taven Bryan, a defensive lineman, Shaquem Grant, a wide receiver, now out of town. Jarvis Landry is gone. Austin Hooper is gone. Troy Hill is gone. Rashard Higgins is gone. J.C. Treader is out of town. Tack McKinley, Malik Jackson. So they did have some significant losses on this team as well. But if you look, I mean, I think overall it would be very, very, very hard for us to say that this team didn't get exponentially better in the offseason when you talk about bringing in a quarterback the stature of Deshaun Watson and a wide receiver the stature of Amari Cooper. Now, in the draft, they didn't have a pick until the third round. So no first-round pick, no second-round pick. They did have multiple third-round picks. So with those picks, they used it on Martin Emerson, who's a cornerback, Alex Wright, who's a defensive end, and they did take David Bell, a wide receiver, in the third round, who might end up actually seeing some action this year for this team. They took a defensive tackle in Perry and Winfrey in the fourth round, and then they took a kicker in Cade York in the fourth round, who actually looks like he is going to be the starting kicker there for Cleveland as well. Right now, as we record this, Stephen, they are the best number you can find, a 3-1 plus 300 out there on the Browns to win the NFC North. If you're talking about a Super Bowl number, if you did want to bet this squad, the best you can find is a 25-1.
You cannot bet on the Browns right now to do anything worth value with this Deshaun Watson situation still hanging in the air. And as we record this on August the 4th, let me be blunt. I think the Browns are fucked because all the talk about taking judge and jury powers out of the commissioner's hands in the new CBA has gone out the window, it seems, because yes, they had an initial ruling from an impartial judge that laid down 6 games. But then Adam Schefter tweets the CBA allows, quote, the appeal to be processed on an expedited basis and the commissioner or his designee may, quote, overturn, reduce, modify, or increase the discipline previously issued, and it will be final and binding on all parties. Sum that up for you. The commissioner can still lay down whatever suspension he wants on appeal. How the players union agreed to this after crying about the commissioner having judge and jury powers, I'll never know, to still let him do this on appeal. But my prediction, and this is just one man's opinion, they've been very clear that they want to suspend him for the full season. And it appears on appeal under the CBA, they still have the power to do that. So yes, Deshaun Watson could potentially pull a Tom Brady and take this to federal court and delay it to the following season, however it plays out. But let's not forget, he structured his contract extension to take the minimum salary this year, anticipating his suspension, so that he could get a lot more money the following season. So it will cost Deshaun Watson a hell of a lot of money to take this to federal court and risk his suspension getting moved to the 2023 season. So my prediction is the NFL and Roger Goodell is going to pull his power, suspend him for the season, and Watson's going to take it because he doesn't want to lose more money. So short of the Browns trading for Jimmy Garoppolo, who's still floating around out there, like, this is a team with elite position groups basically everywhere other than quarterback. But that still makes them around a 500 team for me. So to bet any type of futures on them at this juncture would be unwise, because even if they make the playoffs, what are they going to do with a Jacoby Brissett or a best case scenario Jimmy Garoppolo? They're not going to do anything.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in their best interest even to bring in Garoppolo, because I mean I think we could like argue whether he's even exponent,
I don't think they'll trade for him. I think it would have to be like they cut him and
got
they
a release. Yeah, it'd have to be a release type situation. And I look at it from is he really even that much better than Jacoby Brissett? I mean, that's worth probably arguing, as well with this team as we sit right now. regular season win total for this team had been pulled down, and that's why it's tough for us also to talk about this team.
I have the movement if you want it from what it was. It was 9.5 in the summer. It was 8.5 just before this possible season-long suspension update. To make the playoffs when he was suspended 6 games, it was minus 110 both ways. But then this news started to trickle out that he might still be gone for the whole year. So the market started moving back towards no at minus 130. And then the books pulled it off the board. And now their division price has gone from around plus 230, a little more bullish when it was only 6 games. And it's now back down to around plus 300 everywhere.
Yeah, the price I think is appropriate because, I mean, frankly, even with Deshaun Watson, I think this is, the second best team in the division. I don't think it's the best team in the division. I think you could argue that maybe there's even a third, that they're the third best team in the division. And listen, that's not saying this team's bad. It just means this is a really good football division when you're talking about Cincinnati and Baltimore, and Cleveland's in there as well. Now, there are some things working for this team. If it does not end up being a season-long suspension, I do not believe it'll end up being a season-long suspension. I think they'll end up meeting somewhere in the middle because if the arbiter said 6 games, they wanted a year, I think there's going to be some sort of something in the middle with all of this. It's the 8th easiest schedule in all of the NFL, and not only is it the 8th easiest schedule in all of the NFL, it starts out very easy. So if it's, let's call it 8 games or something along that nature, you're starting out Carolina, Jets, Steelers, Falcons. That's your first 4 games. You can win all of those with Jacoby Brissett. Like, you can win every single one of those games with Jacoby Brissett for sure. Then you play the Chargers, and then you play the Patriots, of which we don't really know what that team's going to be either. So the first 6 weeks, 5 of the 6 games, Stephen, are winnable. Doesn't matter who you have at quarterback.
Matt, in fact, they have the easiest early schedule in regards to opponent rush defenses. So combine the elite offensive line, the running backs, top 5 defense, they're bottom 10 in pace for situation neutral, and whether they're up 1 score or down 1 score last season. So this is a team that I am going to be interested in backing as a small favorite or an underdog early in the season with the weak opponents that they're facing, because I think the rest of the roster is very strong. Now, one market that stood out to me, and hat tip to one of our new writers, Derek Wagner, for pointing this out. Go to thelines.com and under the odds tab, hit the player prop finder tool and search Nick Chubb. There's an opportunity here where there is a 2-touchdown difference between books on a season-long rushing touchdown prop. You can find one book where he's at 8.5. You can find another book where he's at 10.5. So I decided I'm going to put like 11 units on this, split it between the over 8.5 and the under 10.5. And with the juice, even if it doesn't fall into that 9 or 10 touchdown range, I've only lost 1 unit with the juice, with the option or the potential to win 10 units. So this is a rare find. Hat tip to Derek for finding it. So as we record this, hopefully it's there when you guys listen back and see it. But yeah, there's one book has 8.5 touchdowns for Nick Chubb, another has 10.5. Go try and middle that, or just take the market inefficiency with the Nick Chubb over 8.5 touchdowns.
Yeah, the offensive line, as you mentioned, I mean, going to be one of the very best in the NFL again. I mean, Jedrick Wills, Joel Bitonio, Nick Harris, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin. That is just an all-star group for this offensive line. So they're going to have a ton of success on the ground. Yet again, they've averaged 4.8 yards per rush over the last 2 seasons, and I imagine that's probably going to be pretty close to the same again with that group. And as you mentioned, on the defensive side of the ball, Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, really good edge rushers. Now, they could use a little bit of help on the interior of that defensive line, but the secondary, absolutely phenomenal. Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Greedy Williams, John Johnson, and then Grant Delpit. Again, is like when you read off the names in this secondary, you read off the names on the offensive line, it seems like it's a Pro Bowl team and it's all on one team right here. So there are some super, super strong units here for the Browns, no doubt about it. It's just with the giant question mark at the quarterback position. Listen, we've seen what Jacoby Brissett is. He is going to win a couple of games where you go, I can't believe the Browns won that game. And then they are going to lose a couple of games where you go, Jacoby Brissett was absolutely atrocious. We know what he is as a player. So, the real big question here is, will they or won't they have Deshaun Watson at all over the course of this season? My guess would be on the back end of the season, but, it could be not at all. And so that just makes this a very frustrating, a very tough team to handicap, a very tough team to bet outside of, like you're talking about, from a player prop perspective and really from a player prop perspective on the running back side, because again, we know what we have in this offensive line for sure. We know what we have in the talent of this running back core for sure. So there's at least one constant here and one solid piece of information and one solid opinion that we can make.
Yeah, and apologies for the tech issues if you're watching on YouTube. Had a little camera trouble here, but we'll keep rolling. But week 1, Matt, first example of this, let's keep an eye on it. And we know public money doesn't move lines, sharp money moves lines. But right now, as we sit here, I think the Browns are a 1-point favorite on the road in Carolina. If some of this sharp money starts buying into the Baker Mayfield hype and a potentially better offense than the Browns without Deshaun Watson, this flips the other way for whatever reason, I'm going to want to back the Browns as an underdog in this game because I think the collective units here are still better than what Carolina trots out there, even with an improvement on paper in the quarterback situation. So we'll see how it plays out, though.